right. Yes, 45. 45 minutes. Hi, everyone. Are you exhausted? I am exhausted. Welcome to this session. When I was asked to do the introduction for our behavioral session, I laughed because for those of you who have met Dylan, she's on the behavioral side of this disorder. She keeps us on our toes. I'm so excited to introduce Sue Catlett. Sue is going to talk to us about behavior management, and she is a board-certified behavioral analyst and licensed behavioral analyst here in Houston. In fact, I learned she lives 5 minutes from here.
Like, my house flooded during Hurricane Harvey, and this is where I stayed for 3 nights. Really close.
So it's a good hotel.
Yeah.
Sue has received her Ph.D. in educational psychology and individual differences from the University of Houston. We love this stuff. You are credentialed. Let me just end with that. 30 years of experience. We're so lucky to have Sue here as a local expert and one that will help us understand how to navigate this really challenging behavioral journey. Thank you.
That's my phone.
Oh, I'm going to steal it.
Hi. Good afternoon. I'm sure y'all are tired. I was really impressed that there were still people here at 3:30 in the afternoon, so welcome. My name is Susan. This presentation or clicker or something has a mind of its own, so I'll try to stay on target. So my name is Susan. I am a behavior analyst. I work primarily with kids with autism. I've been working with kids with autism and behavior for over 30 years. I primarily work in school districts. I've been self-employed as a consultant here in the Houston and Texas area for a very long time. But I started working with families, so you all have a very big place in my heart. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I just want to say that I don't know a whole lot about NBIA, but I do love to talk about behavior. So I'm going to kind of talk about behavior just in really the science of behavior in a pretty general format. Hopefully this will make sense to you, and hopefully I'll have enough time because I'm very guilty of thinking I have all of this stuff to say in 45 minutes, and I don't often make it. So if you have any questions or comments, just feel free to raise your hand. I'm very informal, casual. First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me. While doing my presentation, I did a little bit of research on NBIA, and I have learned that it is your 12th international conference, that there are 789 members, 56 families represented. There are between 15 and 20,000 people with NBIA worldwide, and that it's very rare. It affects 1 to 3 people per 1 million. So welcome to Houston if you're traveling. I mentioned we flooded in Harvey, and I live literally like 5 minutes away. And it was funny when she had told me about this, because I was like, oh, I'll do that. You know, it's five minutes away. But this really, my dog and 2 cats and I were, oh, thank you, not rescued, but gotten off my bedroom balcony onto an airboat. And the airboat drove us to the end of the community. And at the end of the community, there was no flooding, but the rest of the streets were, so none of my friends could get me anywhere. So some random guy drove me to this hotel with my dog and 2 cats. And I stayed here for 3 days, and they were very nice. Anyway, so I just want to mention, regardless of the disability, no child ever, oh goodness. No children never ever choose a meltdown or an anxiety-related behavior. It's the same way that you would never ever choose to have a meltdown in front of your family, colleagues, or friends. Family, maybe, but not all. Meltdown is not a choice. It's a byproduct of a brain that isn't coping with something, and that brain needs to be showered in love, compassion, and safety, not punishment or shame. So now you can work. Okay, so I found this cool little meme that I really love, and I use this a lot when I train teachers, because I hear the term, he's having a tantrum, or he's having a fit, or he's, oh, come on. This just must be really sensitive. I'll set it right there. And I always ask, when people say he's having a tantrum, I'm always like, what does that look like? And usually they're describing a meltdown. So I try to take the word tantrum out of my vocabulary and use the term meltdown, and here's why. Any of you have 2 or 3-year-old neurotypical children or grandchildren or neighbors or nieces or nephews? Okay, so do I. So when you talk about a tantrum, you're thinking about that very want-directed. I always think about the kid in the grocery store, in the checkout line, Mom is trying to hurry up. She's got a million things going on, and the little girl or the little boy spots the Skittles. And so the little boy or little girl goes, "Skittles, Mommy." And Mommy goes, "No, baby, we don't have time, not now." And the baby goes, "Skittles, Mommy." And the mom's like, "Oh, God, no, honey, it's not." And there's people behind her, and the checkout lady's like, "Are you going to get the Skittles?" And then the little girl or boy goes, "I want Skittles." Really embarrassing. And so she or he is very goal-directed. She's got an audience to perform because there's all these people waiting in line. There's Mommy, there's little brother, older brother, there's checkout lady. And she's looking or he's looking for the engagement. Like, is she going to get the Skittles? Am I going to get the Skittles? And it's very protective. Like, I want those Skittles. And interestingly, it's resolved if the goal is accomplished. And I can tell you, as a behaviorist, I'm always watching. And so I see it happen in grocery stores or wherever, and Mom just goes, "Okay, stop crying," and the crying goes away, right? And that's something that usually happens around 1 to 5 years. But if you look at a meltdown, it is, and I will tell you, I have meltdowns. I had one this morning, not too bad, but it was a result of being overstressed and overwhelmed. It's less proactive, it's less protective, but more reactive. It really doesn't require attention. My dogs weren't paying attention to me today. I didn't have any friends or family over, but I was having a bit of a meltdown, not because I was coming here, but there's a million other things going on, right? As you all do. Safety can be compromised in some children, not in me. I know how to take care of myself, but for adults or young children, safety can be compromised. It often results in fatigue, and again, it's not goal-directed. It has nothing to do with, I have to get this or I want to get this. And for some people, assistance may be needed to gain control. And I love this because they can occur through adulthood, and you can all tell that I am an adult. I co-host a podcast called Function Junction Behavior Matters, and we have lots of guests who have autism or parents or teachers or occupational therapists, lots of different people. And last year, I believe, we had a young man who's in his 30s. His name's Chris. He has autism. He is very independent. He has a full-time job selling software. He's in sales, which I love because he used to be in software development, and now he's in software sales, which means he has to interact more with people, which I love. Anyway, we were interviewing his mom. Actually, we've had 2 podcasts with him. But anyway, his name's Chris, and I've known him for a really, really long time. And in elementary school, he had pretty significant behaviors. And so I had said to him, I gave him a little story, and he remembered it, and we kind of giggled. And I said, "Chris, I'm just curious, have you had any meltdowns, lately as an adult?" And this was after COVID. And he goes, "I was doing really good, but I did have one during COVID. And I lost my job, and I just lost it." And I was like, "Okay, well, we all have meltdowns." And he was like, "Yeah, I got over it, and I was safe, But the point is that people have meltdowns even into their adult life. And so it is very different than a tantrum. So I just kind of like that difference in phrases. Now it won't go. Do I hit it back here? There we go. I hope this is what I wanted. Sorry, you guys. Nope, I knew it wasn't. One more. I'm sorry. Oh, it's going forward instead of backward. Sorry. I think I got one more. One more. Okay, here we go. All right, so as we talk about behavior, if you can, and this is to the extent if you can, you want to recognize the cues. And in behavior world, we call these precursors. And if your child has precursors, you're lucky, because that's when we can redirect the behavior. So it might be a student, an individual has becomes tense, has a red face, starts pacing, clenching their fists, kicking, running away in public, hiding or going to a quiet place, refusal, being stuck. And like I said, if the individual has precursors, that's sometimes a good thing because we can catch it before it goes to a full-blown meltdown. Sorry, you guys. Okay. And sometimes, in a lot of cases, which may be yours, there are no precursors, right? We have individuals who lay on the floor and scream. They might have self-injurious behaviors. They might lay on the floor and refuse to stand or walk. They might scream, being unable to calm. So some ideas that help are, one, little or no talking. Just remember less is more. And I'm going to show you this anxiety curve as we get to the next frame. Calm statements. I find myself, I've done this for years, and I kind of just realized that when I see an individual at a really elevated state, I don't say, well, I'll just put it back to me. This morning, when I was having a bit of a meltdown, and if someone was there and they said, Susan, what's wrong? Come on, use your words. Come on, get over it. You're going to be fine. Use your deep breathing. I would have been like, can you leave my house, please? Right? Because that doesn't help me. What might have helped if someone just said in a very calm voice, you're okay. You're okay. It's okay. And I find myself doing that. And I work with individuals from 3 to 22. So, depending on the individual, I might say, you're okay. Come here. Or I might not say anything. I might just pat them on the back. Sometimes you can model breathing techniques. In a lot of cases, you guys, and I know this is really hard when you're at the mall or in a restaurant or at the grocery store, sometimes you just have to wait it out. Because sometimes people have to go all the way, we talk about a level 5, all the way to 5 before they can get back down. Sometimes you can redirect. We want to make sure, and I love this came from a parent many, many years ago, educate other people who have opinions. In the autism world, it is so prevalent. The numbers just came out not too long ago from the Center for Disease Control, and it's 1 in 36. So it's really not uncommon to see a person with autism, and it's not uncommon to see a person with autism having a meltdown. And I know quite a few parents who have little business cards in their bag, and when someone's like, he just needs a spanking, or you just need to take him home and teach him some manners, that mom will just pass on a card while she's waiting out the child or the individual out, and the card says, I have autism, please be patient. Or I have autism, please learn more at this website, which I really like. And you can get business cards made at home. You can do it at home, and you can just put something about NBIA, and if someone has some comments that they think that are helpful, you can just pass that card on. And then remembering the anxiety curve, which we're getting ready to help. And then if need be, it might be that you ask for help. And I cannot tell you how many times I've been in the community and I see something happening, and I know it's an individual who, has some behavioral disorder or emotional disorder, neurological disorder, and I will say to the mom or dad, do you need help? And almost every time they will say, I got it. I'm like, okay, but I always try to offer help, because imagine if you were there and you really did need help and no one offered help, right? So thinking about this anxiety curve, I just want to show it to you really quick. I got it. I kind of feel like I'm tethered here. Okay, so the way I describe this to teachers and parents is that, level 1 is really your foundation of your plan. This is where positive and nurturing relationships are built and where you can teach skills. You are not going to teach skills at a level 5. So we all go through the anxiety curve. Some of us stay at a 1 all the time. Some of us get to a 2 where we okay, I need to do some deep breathing. And my little joke is, smell the flowers, blow out the candles. Last time I went out of town, I don't remember, a friend of mine was staying with my animals, and I was really anxious because I hadn't traveled since COVID, right? And so I'm texting her from the Uber, and I'm like, I'm so anxious. I don't know what's wrong with me. I know I'm worried about the dogs. I know they're in good care, blah, blah, blah. She's like, smell the flowers, blow out the candles. So she knows me really well. And this is really where we need to stay, where the staff or parent needs to stay. Remembering that we can really teach. Oh, you're fine. Are you trying to mouth for me? So level 1 is where we're good, we're ready to learn, we're happy, we're, ought to go out ready to go. Level 2 is where the first signs of early stress need to be recognized. And this is usually when I say, do you need to go get a glass of water? Do you need a drink? Do you want to have a piece of candy? Do you need... Level 3 is where really it's probably time to leave the frustrating situation or the anxiety-driven situation. And this is where usually we try to teach individuals to say, I need a break, or to say, I need help, or to just stop and maybe have a sign. I don't know if a lot of your individuals that you live with have AAC, voice output devices. A lot of times we can put, I need a break, or I need help on there, and make it on the home screen so they can immediately ask for help or a break. And we honor that, right? Level 4 is not the time to ask the person to make choices. We simply model calming strategies. Level 5 is where it's not the time to talk. It could be hitting, throwing, self-injurious behaviors, biting, swearing, crying. And so once you get to a level 5, you have these choices that we mentioned over here. Waiting it out, asking for help. Oh, well, I won't try to go back. So level 4 is where we're kind of coming back down that anxiety curve. And you guys, you can watch it. If you're in a safe place and your loved one is having kind of a meltdown and you have the time to watch it, it's amazing to just watch it go, escalate to a 5. And a lot of people say, my kid, my loved one doesn't go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They go from 1 to a 5, you know, and sometimes it's just really fast. And so, and then at level 3, level 4 is where we're just trying not to redirect. We're not offering a bad assignment. We're just saying things like, you're okay. It's going to be okay. And some of my parents and teachers have these visually. So they can say to a child, how are you feeling? And if they come in and say they're at a 1, we're like, you're ready to learn. Awesome, awesome. If they say they might touch 3 or show you 3, we go, let's take a quick break before we get started. And then we go back down to a level 3, and then calm redirection. And then again, level 1 is where instruction and all of those wonderful things can take place. So just to kind of recognize that we all go through this anxiety curve. Maybe not as frequently as your loved one, but we all experience the anxiety curve. Moving along. Is he okay? Okay. Anybody? Oh, here we go. Breathing. So if your loved one can practice and you can model things and they can practice, I really love teaching kids how to breathe. This is from a curriculum called Zones of Regulation. It's actually a curriculum resource that I really love to teach kids. And lazy 8 breathing is, oh gosh, Susan. Okay, just tracing the lazy 8 with your finger, starting at the star and taking a deep breath in. As you cross over to the other side of the lazy 8, you slowly let your breath out. Consider breathing around the lazy 8 until you have a calm body and mind. There in the middle is my smelling the flowers and blowing out the candles. And then the last one is the 6 sides of breathing. And I can't read that's this far away, but it does look at breathe in, hold, breathe out, breathe in, hold, breathe out. Lots of kids love that. I was with a little 4th grader, a young man, in PE. And he has autism, and I don't know if you know this, but people with autism do not like to lose, right? And so we were in PE, and I knew what was coming, and they played a game, and his team lost, and so he was not happy. And he started going probably to a 2 or a 3, and I went over to him, and I said, I need you to watch me. Smell the flowers, blow out the candles. Oh, sorry. And he did. And he came over to me at the end of PE, and he goes, I feel so much better. Thank you very much. I was like, I'm glad it worked. But I kind of love this because I do Pilates. I try to do it more than I should do it, or I do it, wish I did it more than I should. But anyway, I don't know if you know Pilates and yoga, but breathing in and breathing out is like a huge piece to that. So those are some nice strategies if you can teach your loved one. I'm going to get quickly into just the basic science of behavior, and I have this picture because I have a friend who is also a behavior person, and this is her dog. And she showed me this picture, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what have we taught that baby right there? And so, he sits on her lap when he wants to watch TV to where she can barely see the TV. And it cracks me up because behaviors only keep occurring if they're resulting in reinforcement. That dog would not keep doing that if he didn't continue to get reinforcement, that is, allowed to sit on her lap or her leg. So if we were not achieving reinforcement, we would no longer continue to engage in these behaviors. So for example, I don't like, what's something you don't like? I don't like Brussels sprouts. And if someone fed me Brussels sprouts and I was like, I would not eat Brussels sprouts again because I don't like them. But if you gave me a big bowl of French fries that were just perfect and perfectly salted, and I continued eating them, I'd probably go back to that same restaurant very frequently, right? So behaviors don't occur unless they're getting reinforced. And this basic principle of behavior applies to all human behavior, even appropriate and inappropriate. and you might, well, let me get through this. It does apply to all humans and some animals, but not to cats. So I do have a cat, and Sydney, he has 3 legs because he broke a leg in Harvey, but that's another long story. And he does not adhere to the behavioral principles. So, this is Pavlov's Pavlov's cat, and he's ringing the bell, and of course the dog's supposed to produce saliva, and the cat's like, yeah, right. And that really is how cats roll. But dogs really do adhere to the same principles of behavior. In fact, I was working with a teacher who was teaching a little boy to respond to basic one-step directions, and it was like, come here, sit down, look at me, blah, blah, blah. And she was reinforcing him with half a Skittle every time he followed the directions. She looked at me and she goes, I'm a dog trainer. And I go, okay. And she goes, I feel like this is training a dog. And I said, okay, behavior is behavior is behavior. The principles that we use with children are the same principles that we use with our pets. It doesn't mean you're doing dog training. It means we're using the principles of behavior. So when we talk about behavior, I feel like a lot of times people want to think about the kicking, spitting, hitting, biting, pinching kinds of behaviors, and we do. But we also want to look at really anything you can see or count. So eating, dressing, completing multiplication problems, reading, dancing, using the restroom, sitting, cooking, working at the computer, those are all behaviors in behavior world. So we're always wanting to increase the good stuff while decreasing the behaviors that you don't want. So think of your own behavior. And I don't know about y'all, but during COVID, I can't remember. I think it was a year and a half before I wore something other than yoga pants. Any of y'all? It took me so long to wear pants with buttons. I didn't even know, am I going to remember how to button my pants? So again, we don't keep eating the same meals or wearing the same clothes or wearing the same shoes, watching the TV shows, drinking the drinks, going to the same stores, if they weren't reinforcing. If we left, is anybody staying here, in Houston from out of town? Welcome. I hope you like Houston. I love it. And this is a great area to stay, so I'm glad you're here. Well, if you happen to go out to dinner or go out to lunch tomorrow and you go someplace and the service is not that great and the waiter's kind of stuffy and the food wasn't that great, it was kind of overpriced, it took forever, the likelihood that you'll go back to the restaurant is very low. If you, however, go to a restaurant around near here, and there are a lot of good ones, that is awesome. The food's delicious. You've never been to a place like this. The service was impeccable. Everything. It's highly likely you'll go back to that same restaurant. It's the principle of behavior. We don't keep doing things we don't like. We keep doing things that we like, right? So we continue to go to those same restaurants and stores and whatever it is that we do because it's reinforcement. It's reinforcing. We don't continue to look and do things that aren't pleasant because it's not reinforcing. Same thing with your kids. So just kind of some key concepts to focus on. Whenever you ask yourself or your husband or your wife or significant other or friend, why is she doing that? Why is he doing that? What you're really asking is, what's the function of the behavior? And function of the behavior is really the crux of behavior world, right? So I'm a behavior analyst, and really, I spend my life saying, why does he do that? Why is she doing that? Why does she do that? Why does she do that? Because that's what we're trying to figure out. And I will tell you, I can break it down and make it sound really easy. It's kind of complicated, but basically, we engage in behaviors because it feels good. I don't know, what are some things that you like? It just feels good. Do you have any kids who engage in self-stimulatory behaviors or rocking and things? It feels good, right? They wouldn't keep doing it if it wasn't reinforcing. We also engage in behavior like the kid with the Skittles at the grocery store because it gets attention. Well, in that case, it got them a tangible. But a lot of times we engage in behaviors because it gets attention. And like I said earlier, it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative attention. And you might be thinking to yourself, I didn't teach him to do that. No, you probably didn't. But something is reinforcing it, right? And sometimes it's us saying, stop it. Don't do that. Quit it. That's not nice, but that can be enough to reinforce the behavior, right? So I talk to teachers about this all the time. I know you didn't intend to reinforce it because the teacher or the paraprofessional is like, all I do is tell them to stop. That in and of itself could increase the behavior. So anytime we talk about reinforcement, we're talking about an increase in behavior. It could get them what they want, the Skittles, the toy, the food, the activity, the drink. It could get them out of work demands. Lots of behaviors occur to escape or avoid demands. Things like my person, golly, sorry, I do this too. I have a lot of work to do over the weekend, and I can assure you that before I write a report, my office will be clean, my bank account will be balanced, my bills will be paid, I will do everything, my laundry will be done before I write that report. Why? Because I hate writing reports. It's my least favorite thing to do. I should love it, but I don't. So I do things to avoid writing that report. Or it sometimes makes things painful go away. And I'll give you some common examples. I am very sensitive to mosquito bites. So if I get a mosquito bite, I itch to make the itch go away. Or some people get really bad headaches and they do this to make the pain go away. Well, what I've read is that this is very common in NBIA, that people engage in behaviors to try to make something painful go away. And when we see those kinds of behaviors, I often say we really need to look at the medical piece of it first. Because a kid might be headbanging, or might be pulling out their eyelashes, or might be, oh gosh, I won't get into a lot of details, but I've seen individuals engage in some pretty significant self-injurious behaviors, and there's a couple of things happening. One, it really could be to make pain go away. Like, my teeth hurt so bad, I'm gonna, what's that called? What's it called? Grind. Yeah, I just couldn't come up with that word. They might grind and grind and grind. Or I might have a headache, and so I bang my head. You know, all kinds of things. And there is some research, scarily, that tells us that sometimes when individuals engage in self-injurious behavior, there's an endorphin release. So it actually turns out to be a pleasure chemical that's released. And it's tough. It's the hardest behaviors to deal with. And the reason is because we might say to a child or an individual, skittle for quiet mouth, skittle for quiet hands, and the message the kid or the individual is thinking, I'm getting an endorphin release for banging my head, and you're going to give me a skittle for not? I don't think so. So it's always important to rule out the medical issue first, ruling out the dentist, medical, things like that. Excuse me. That is one thing about Houston is we have lots of allergies. So sometimes as caregivers, we have to play detective and look really closely at what is going on in the environment. And I cannot tell you how many times I will say to a parent or a caregiver or a teacher, what happened? What's going on? Like, here's a good example. Kids in schools. How many of your kids are in school? Anybody? Okay, so you know this scenario. So in school, in elementary school, we walk like, you know, with our hands behind our back and a bubble in our mouth and two fingers across our heads, and everybody's walking and doing the right thing, and then there's Johnny all of a sudden on the floor, spinning in circles, screaming, cussing, spitting. And I'll say to the teacher, this is a real scenario, it happens a lot. I'll say to the teacher, what happened? And she'll be like, nothing. We were just walking through the hall on the way to lunch. Something happened. And it's not anything anyone said or did, but it's something in the environment. And sometimes it could be that there's a light flickering, or a sound, or a smell, or someone's wearing the wrong color. I had a young lady that I worked with years ago, and she hated the color yellow. And I'll never forget, she was in middle school, and the principal came in to say hello to the classroom. She was in a special education classroom, and he was wearing a yellow tie, and she cussed him up and down. And so it happened frequently, and we weren't smart enough to put the pieces together that it was the color yellow. And the teacher had let the dad know, wasn't a big deal, but she wanted to let him know. And he was like, I'm a pastor. I do not teach her these behaviors. I don't know where she's getting these cussing behaviors from. It was kind of funny, but I will tell you, she did anything for the color pink. She would work all day long for just a pink hair tie. But you wear yellow? No, ma'am. So you really have to be detective. Is there something loud or noisy? Is there something different? Did you move something in your room? Did you change the chairs out? Did you move a flower? Whatever it is. Is there something that's visually stimulating? Is there something unexpected? And that can be a tough one, because I know we try to prepare our loved ones for every minute of every day, but sometimes there are things that happen. Someone rings the doorbell that you didn't know it was going to happen. Or is there someone unexpected? Did someone come from out of town? Look at you, you're in a new town. You might have your loved one with you, and you're in a hotel. And, it's not uncommon to have behaviors in those situations, and I've been there. I've been to so many conferences, and I know a lot of parents, and I see kids I have one friend, he's older now, but he used to be obsessed with swimming pools. And God love her, the mom, Kim, was doing a presentation, and Garrett's over here in the audience. Swimming pool, swimming pool, swimming pool. And she's trying to do a presentation, but her husband came and took him to the swimming pool. So we have to look at what was really happening. What happened before the behavior? Was there a trigger? In behavior world, we call that an antecedent. But you're just looking at something that might have triggered the behavior. And then what happened after it? That's called a consequence. And in behavior world, a consequence isn't bad or ugly or mean. It's simply what happened after the behavior. So, for example, your child has a meltdown in the Galleria. And we ask, what did you do? Well, you probably gave a lot of attention because you're in the Galleria. Or you probably got, he or she probably got a lot of attention from other people because you're in the Galleria. Or maybe people ignored, or maybe, who knows? But, a lot of different consequences could be ignored, got attention, got what they wanted, didn't get what they wanted. Maybe a sibling or family member laughed, a sibling or family member cried. We're always looking at what behavior. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that behavior never occurs alone. It's always surrounded by something before it and something after it. And an easy way to remember that is ABC, antecedent, behavior, consequence. So a lot of times I'll work with teachers and other people, and they want to change the behavior. And I'm like, well, I can't change the behavior until I see it and know, or you tell me about it, not just the behavior, but what's happening before and what's happening after. We look at, in behavior world, we do a lot of functional behavior assessments, and those are the first questions we ask. In fact, I'm doing one in a school in a 18-plus program next week, and I sent out a lot of forms for the parent and the teacher to fill out, and it was a lot of questions about what happens before and what happens after the behavior. Changing behavior is a process, right? And so we're always looking at, first of all, identifying the behavior. So if I were consulting with you or working with you and said, what do you want to change? And you might say, falling to the floor and screaming or running away. I always want to ask for more information. Where does that happen? When does that happen? With whom does it happen? Where does it not happen? With whom does it not happen? Looking at why we think it's happening. So why do you think he's falling to the floor? Why do you think he's running away? Well, it could be to escape. It could also be for attention. I know a lot of kids who engage in behaviors that common sense would say, oh, that's to escape the demand. It might be for attention. Or it might be to get to, I have a lot of friends who have perseverative behaviors on certain things that are a little odd to most of us, like garbage trucks or the mailman, or a lot of times in school districts, it's a certain bus number. So they might be really obsessed with that. And we always want to look at why do we think it's happening? Sometimes it's self-stimulatory. And sometimes that's the hardest behavior to change because it's so internally reinforcing to see that bus number 503, right? Or the garbage truck. And then we have to do something different. So let's talk about some things that we can do differently. And then we always ask, did the behavior change? So, the first Albert Einstein used to say the first sign of insanity is keep doing the same things and expect different results. So whenever I see teachers or family members do the same thing and the behavior never changes, I always want to say, okay, let's go to plan B, right? Because plan A isn't working. We got to go to plan B, and we always have a plan B. So you want to look at the behavior you want to change, screaming, hurting self, hitting others, hitting self, biting, kicking, pinching. You also want to look at what you want the child to do. Follow directions. You want to look at giving them a way to express their wants and needs. A lot of times, kids don't have the way to tell you what they want, so they scream to get what they want. And so that's why I love hearing about people with voice output devices, because that's their voice. And if you don't have, voice output device, sometimes we just use pictures. Sometimes we teach signs. Sometimes we just teach any way to get their needs met so that the screaming or running or crying doesn't have to be happening. Sometimes it's just being able to express why they're upset, or even understanding basic emotions, or what's more importantly is to be able to identify what hurts. Is it your head, is it your hand, is it your and then we can give them pictures, we can teach. There's so many different things we can do. So a lot of times we use visual supports. I feel happy today, and I have a choice board, and sometimes you have to teach those emotions. I remember I was working with a young man who was so smart. And I'm trying to think of his name, William. And you would think that person with autism or other developmental disorder who has really high IQ would understand emotions. And I'll never forget, this was, you know how we learn from our mistakes? This is one of those situations. I had all these pictures, and they were really kind of abstract. Like, it was not just happy, sad, mad. It was like frustrated, bored, confused, like really kind of, you know, abstract emotions. And he could do it. Oh my gosh, he could do it backward and forward. He could read the words. He could do all that. But if I said, "How am I feeling, William?" and I did a really exaggerated happy, he'd go, Susan is feeling? I'm like, we just spent a month working on emotions, and he didn't generalize it from the pictures to me. Or Mom would come in and go, "Oh, William, how do I feel? I'm so. And he'd go, Mommy is feeling? So I'm like, great. I did got all this great work with happy, sad, frustrated, bored, but he didn't generalize it from the pictures to people. So it doesn't help. So sometimes we have to model it using ourselves, using videos. YouTube has everything you could want to teach in emotions and also in how my body feels, what part of my body it hurts, things like that. Sometimes we use it for just basic wants and needs, you know. We have lots of visual support. And if you don't have a printer or a computer at home, I do a lot of parent training. I did a lot of virtual parent training during COVID. We have educational service centers here in town, all over Texas. And the nice people at our service center asked me to do a lot of parent training during COVID because they, you know, we were like, what? Parents were like, huh? Schools are closed? Wait, what? You know, it was like, we have a huge thing during spring break in Houston. It's the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And it's the biggest livestock show and rodeo in the world. It's a big deal. Like, it goes on for 2 or 3 weeks. We have country and western singers come down. It's a big deal. It's huge. And in the middle of rodeo, I think it was like the Tuesday of rodeo, our mayor came out and said, rodeo shut down. Everybody go home. And I'm telling you, that's when we were all like, oh, this is something big. It's during spring break. But anyway, so, you know, schools just kind of went, boop, gone. So we did a lot of parent training, and I found that a lot of families don't have computers, don't have printers, don't have lamination, don't have Velcro. It doesn't matter. If you get grocery flyers in the mail, cut out those pictures. Catalogs, ask your teacher, your child's teacher, if you have an individual who's older, ask any of their caregivers to just find pictures. It doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be laminated, it doesn't have to be Velcroed, but it gives them a voice. So consider different ways that you can find pictures. I've even done it on my phone. You know, maybe I'm in a classroom and we don't have anything available. I'll find a picture of Skittles or goldfish. And then maybe I'll borrow my teacher's phone and I'll find something that I know he doesn't like work. And I'll say, what do you want? You know, and they'll tell me what they want very quickly. Sometimes we want to look at other visual cues. We do a lot of visuals in my field, giving volume, perfect volume, giving eye proud break rules, you know, reminding children where to sit when they need to calm down. I was trying to find things that you could use in the home and community. We do first thens a lot. First group, then lunch and recess. We do a lot of token systems, and I don't know, you know, the functioning levels of your kids, so I try to include a lot of different things. If you want this handout, I know that Amber has them. I also have some business cards here. You can email me and I'll send it to you because I see people taking pictures and I don't want you to go through much hassle. Sometimes we have fidgets. I use fidgets all the time. You probably do too. If any of you are messing with something right now, like your phone or the napkin or your hair or whatever, that's a fidget, and that's okay. And sometimes we give our kids and loved ones fidgets to play with. Also, we want to give ourselves visual reminders. I am always making notes to myself. For example, before we started, here was the note that I used to remind me what to say when we got started. I do a lot of visuals with, I'll be in my car, you know, and I'm like, oh, I got to remember to do that. And I'm like, hey, Siri, set a reminder for 4 o'clock. But also reminding ourselves to use visuals, using incentives, using fewer words, using calm down techniques, those deep breathing. Are we staying calm? And I know that's the hardest thing in the world when things are escalated. Give a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice. And then I just want to talk briefly about positive reinforcers. And we want to look at those things that the individual wants that they can't always have. And so is it big enough? Is it worth it to the individual? Do they get it anyway, regardless of whether he does what you ask or she does what you ask him to do? And then the other piece is, this is a quote I make all the time, is they have to want to be here in order to stay here. So I put the garage door there because I have a young man in a school district. We have a lot of rural school districts in this area. I know Houston's big and populated, but around Houston there are really lots of school districts. I think we have over 200 school districts in Texas. It could be even more than that, or maybe that's just the region. But anyway, nevertheless, I work in a school district it's very rural, and the school is quite old, and the gym has a garage door. And so my kid, of course, likes to go to that gym and open and close the garage door. He doesn't open, it's always open, but he likes to just push it up and push it down. Like that garage door right there, he likes to just watch the wheels on it move. And so he would always leave class to go to the garage door. And I found some really cool YouTube videos with garage doors opening and closing, believe it or not. I know you can find anything on YouTube. And I showed the teacher and the paraprofessional these videos, and I was like, if he stays in class for so many minutes, so many hours, I don't care, whatever, he gets to earn YouTube videos. And the teacher said, why would I do this? And I said, because he has to want to be here to stay here, right? There has to be a why bother, you know? If he doesn't have a why bother, why would he stay? And I will be honest with you, this classroom was very dull and very non-stimulating. And to be honest with you, I didn't want to stay there. So I knew that I could leave soon, right? But he didn't know when he was ever leaving. And so we used videos of garage doors to get him to stay. And sometimes, if you worked really hard, we would go to the gym and push open the garage door. So we're always talking about positive reinforcement. When you talk about applied behavior analysis or behavior world, this is really the crux of our science. And we always start with reinforcers. And reinforcers can only be defined by their effect on behavior. So if it doesn't increase or improve the behavior, it wasn't a reinforcer. And here's the example I give. I like goldfish crackers. I like, what are those, cheese nips? I like anything salty like that. And I eat too much of them. And if someone said to me, Susan, I need you to work on that report tomorrow and have it ready by Monday, and when you're done, I'll give you a bag of goldfish crackers. I would say, thank you very much, but I don't work for goldfish crackers, right? I work for a paycheck. So we're always looking at the positive reinforcement. And so I'll tell you, one time I was in high school with a young man who loved YouTube. And it was hard because we would try to get him to work, and it was hard because he'd work and then he'd get a YouTube video and then to try to cancel the YouTube video and go back to work. It was complicated. So I said to the staff, does he like anything else? What about food? And they go, oh yeah, he likes food. He'll eat everything you put in front of him. And I go, will he work for it? Oh no. So there's a difference between things we like and things we work for. So I'm going to kind of start wrapping up because I've got this lovely timer down here as a visual cue to tell me when I need to go. And I want to give you some time for questions and answers. So just want to point out that sometimes people work for drinks and food, and sometimes the food can be weird. Pickles, I do have an individual who loves pickles, and the teacher hates them. So it's this whole thing where we have to cut them up in tiny little pieces and make sure she has her gloves nearby because she has to reinforce him with tiny pieces of pickles. We also have some individuals who work for things that are odd, like yarn or a bottle or algebra. I'll just show you this real quick and then I'll wrap it up. Before I want to show you this, I literally was in a first grade classroom and the kid was on the computer, and I go to it was in a generally first grade classroom, and I go, oh, is this his break time? And she goes, yeah, he loves break time. And so I walked around. I just thought he was watching videos or doing educational something. And I walked around, and I kid you not, he was doing algebra. And I go, he's in first grade. She goes, I know. And I should put a picture in here, but he was literally doing algebra. And so the teacher was like, you think that's neat? She showed me a picture of him drawing on a dry erase board if anybody's a mathematician, correct me. It's a theory. It starts with, thank you, say that again? Pythagorean theorem. And I said to the teacher, I don't even know what that is. And she goes, he does. I was like, okay. But that's what he likes. So as we wrap up, I just want to kind of make a statement about, and I hear parents say this all the time, how did you get him to put his shoes on? How did you get him to take a shower? How did you get him to go wherever? I bribed him. And I always say, no, you positively reinforce them. Because positive reinforcement follows a behavior and results in increase or future responding. Reinforced behaviors result in motivational stimuli after the behavior occurs, meaning we're going to reinforce you for doing the right thing. Reinforcement strengthens, maintains, and increases behavior. It increases the likelihood of a behavior occurring again. Remember my restaurant scenario. Learned behaviors are followed by reinforcement. Reinforcement predicts the ability or the probability of a future behavior. Reinforcement is the behavior occurs before access to the reinforcement, right? So I have a behavior, doing my homework, writing that report, doing my laundry, whatever. It results in reinforcement. With a bribery is the act of offering a preferred item or activity in attempts to influence a behavior in that moment. And bribed behaviors occur only after receiving the item or activity first. So, right? So we go, here's some goldfish crackers. Now do your work. In behavior world, reinforcement would be when you do your work, then you get the goldfish crackers. Bribery only influences the behavior in that moment. It also does not result in an increase in future responding. It is also often on TV and in movies, bribery is often used to get people to do things they shouldn't do. Positive reinforcement is used to get people to do things they should do. So with 1 minute left, I want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions, share your experiences. I do have cards up here in case you want the handout. I know it's late, and I know you're tired. Did I go too late? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, hi. Yes. How often should a behavior analyst or a BCBA, board-certified behavior analyst, be checking in on your kids? That's a great question, and I hate this answer, but it depends on your child. A lot of school districts where I work, I don't, because I do self-employed, I'm a contract consultant, they don't have BCBAs in the district, and so I do work with them as they come out, and sometimes I go out once a week, twice a month, once a month. So it really depends on your child and what their needs are, what kind of program they're in. There's no stock answer to that, right? I'm sorry, I wish there was, but I'm happy to stay for a minute if you want to talk more about your child, and maybe we can talk through that. Great question. I really appreciate you guys. I know it's late in the afternoon. I hope you enjoy your visit. I hope you get out. There's a nice Whole Foods across the street. There's a great restaurant called North Italia. They have great pizzas. There's Total Wine and More. Yes, they know me. No, I'm kidding. I don't drink. Let's see. There's a great little spot called Bella Green. It's a to-go. You just drive up and pick it up. They have great. Their big deal is brick chicken. It's really delicious. What else is around here? Lots of things. So if you have any questions about food, I'm here too. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks to you guys. Have a great weekend. Thank you.